Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on September 15th, 2021. I always say that one way to always keep that innocent and happy inner child alive in every one of us is to never forget to appreciate the magic around us wherever we go, wherever we are, whatever we do. How nice it is to have hot water, how nice it is to be able to turn on the computer or turn on your cell phone, iPhone, whatever, and then all the information, all the entertainment right there at your fingertips. I mean, these are things that we do not uh, think about often. And from my generation and the previous generation, it was unthinkable once upon a time to have luxury like this. So today I want to dedicate an episode in talking about one of the major uh, magic, major display of magic in our daily life. One of the things that without it, these Johnny Tiger daily videos wouldn't be able to happen. Today I want to talk about cell phone. As usual, I always want to insert a little bit of Oriental flavor into these Wisdom Wednesday. So before we start, let's look at a few vocabularies that may help you uh, add to your growing vocabulary of Mandarin language. First, let's look at telephone, because this is an interesting one. Telephone in Mandarin is 电话, D-I-A-N, Dian, like the name Ian, just with a D at the in the beginning. Dian, Hua, H-U-A. Loosely translated, 电话 means electronic speech. I mean, that's just really fitting, right? 电话, electronic speech, means telephone. To make a phone call is 打电话, 打电话, D-A 打. And this is another one of those interesting little uh, weird thing in Mandarin language because 打 da usually means to hit, to attack, and then you say 打电话, suddenly is to make a phone call. To answer a phone call is 接电话，接电话，J-I-A 接电话 means to receive. 接 means to catch, to receive. So to receive a phone call is to answer a phone call. 接电话. To speak on the phone is 讲电话，讲电话 J-I-A-N-G 讲电话 means to speak on the electronic speech, speak on the phone. So if someone ever say 我在讲电话 means I'm on the phone. Don't bother me, 我在讲电话. Someone say hey 电话 or hey 接电话 means hey there's a phone call, answer the phone. And then we go into cell phone. Cell phone. It's called 手机. S-H-O-J-E-E. 手机. Means loosely translated means hand device, hand unit. 手 means hand, and 机 means machine, device, unit. 手机 means hand unit, hand device. So, cell phone. But when you're talking about uh, making a call on the 手机 on the cell phone, you can often still say 打电话 or 接电话 means on the phone, making a phone call, etc., etc. So 电话 is very interchangeable with 手机 nowadays. Most of the time when people talk about 电话, especially in Taiwan or China, a lot of people don't even actually have a 电话 at home anymore. When they say 电话, that means their 手机, their cell phone. It's getting to be like that here too. Now, when did I get my first cell phone? I didn't get my first cell phone until around 1999. I still remember because to me it was a big deal. It was a mark of independence and status. Now I not only carry a cell phone, I carry it on my belt. I would go out of my way to wear a belt, and I have one of those leather cell phone cases on it, and with my phone on it. My leather cell phone case was, uh, I think it was like a Boy London brand. It had one of those eagle uh, on the logo. And my first phone was Nokia. And then I got stubborn. I started using Nokia around 1999, and I didn't graduate to a smartphone until 2014. Like wow, I was stuck in the stone ages of cell phone for the longest time. So many people told me, you need to get an iPhone, you need to get a Samsung Galaxy, you need to get a smartphone, you need to upgrade, you need to do this, you can do this and this and that and phone. And I was stubborn. I was one of those guys. What? Why would I need? Why would I want to browse the internet on my phone? Why would I want to do this, do that on my phone? I just want a phone to make phone calls. I just want to, a phone should just be like a phone, okay? I don't need all the other crap. And in 2014, actually, let me revise that. That actually was more close to 2015. Yeah, 2015, when I graduated to an iPhone. And matter was taken out of my hand. One of my good friend and students uh, gave me a phone. She was graduating to a new iPhone, and she was looking for a worthy person to give a home to her old phone, and she decided to give it to me, totally free of charge. And I mean, at first I was thinking, wow, this is just a lot of extra learning and stuff like that. I don't need this crap. But then I thought, well, you know, she wanted to give me one. I mean, that means she's trying to be nice, and I should take it. And that was me starting this ever downslope journey, uh, falling down the rabbit hole where now I can't even go without my iPhone, my phone book, my contact, my Facebook, all my important stuff are in there. And I do my shopping, I do my gaming, I do my communicating, I do my researching, a lot of it on my iPhone. And now we're getting to the point where I'm making daily videos on my iPhone, and I'm finding that this iPhone is no longer good enough. The storage is too limited. Always running into storage space issue, and sound like I need a new iPhone. So I went from being totally fine with a Nokia old brick of a Nokia phone for 14, 15 years to now I actually am thinking maybe it's time for a new iPhone just so I can have an easier time making these daily videos. So with how fast technology developed today, every few months there's a new phone, every few months there's a new patch, every few days there's a new app. It seemed like phone have been with us every day of our life. Cell phone has been with us for every day of our life. But truth be told, cell phone has only been invented since 1973. Who invented it? Well, it was by a fellow from the US by the name of Martin Cooper. Martin Cooper of the Motorola. A lot of us know Motorola phone. Back then, Martin Cooper was the first person to demonstrate a public civilian model cell phone. prior to that, cell phone was strictly military. They were big. There were those big backpack thing with antennas on the top. The military used for coordinating things on the battlefield. So it's not until 1973 when Martin Cooper showcased the first ever civilian model of cell phone on, to the general public. That first model of Motorola phone kick-started the trend of cell phone technology, and they were called Generation Zero. So there was a zero G phone, and every few years someone come along and make some improvement, make a new update to the cell phone technology, and then it become the next generation. So the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, now we are up to 5G. That's what it means. It's a generation of cell phone technology that it's using. So in 1973, the zero G cell phone, Motorola phone, was invented. Back then, the phone was huge. I don't know if any of you ever seen it. I still remember my dad had one of those. It was like the size of a brick, literally the size of one of those big water bottle, and it weighed approximately 5 pounds. It was 2 point something kilogram. It was really heavy, and I remember when I was little, I used to joke about uh, when my dad got mad enough, he probably would smash someone over the head with that phone, and it would be considered as a murder weapon. So that was the first zero G generation zero cell phone. Cell phone did not become popular or become available to Chinese people until 1985. The first group of Chinese government officials uh, started using uh, cell phone, and by then it was considered generation one. So by then we have the 1G network, 1G cell phone. The first cell phone to be used by a Chinese civilian, and was such a historical moment that it was documented, was in 1987 by a merchant in Guangzhou City. This guy was 23 years old, and he became the first civilian in China to have owned a cell phone. Even his phone number was still documented in the record. Now back then, cell phone was like a really big deal. Nowadays, you see people making phone calls, sending text messages, and big things, small things. What have you eaten? What are you going to have for dinner? Yada yada yada. How are you feeling today? That's this kind of thing was not happening back then. Back then, first of all, let's look at how expensive these old Generation One phones were. In China and Taiwan, they were the equivalent of, well, they were $30,000 Chinese, $30,000, almost $40,000, in fact, Chinese. So how much was that in equivalent of US dollar back then? That was equivalent of $10,000 US, which means today would be about $25,000 US. Can you imagine? $25,000 US to buy a Generation 1 cell phone. That's how much these things were costing back then in China and Taiwan. And even if you had the money, it didn't mean that you could just go out and buy one because the supply was so limited. So you needed to have the status, you needed to have the influence, and you have to wait in a line to get one. So a lot of people turned their eyes to the underground black market to obtain a pirated phone. Yeah, they were pirating phone even back then. And those pirated phones were going up to as much as $60,000 Chinese, which was the equivalent of about $20,000 US back then, which means it would almost be $50,000 US today. Crazy, crazy amount of money just to get a cell phone back then. And when you talk on the phone back then, it was 20 it was 60 cents, 60 cents per minute, 60 cents per minute. Uh, to put it in a bit of a contrast to put in comparison. So some people say 60 cents. What's a big deal? Well, back then, for a Chinese person to eat a meal was only 15 cents, which means you talk on the phone for a minute, and that's the money that you would spend for 4 meals. It's gone. So people back then would only use their cell phone for super emergency situation. Like most of the time, they would rather drive or walk to the person's house or to come to visit, uh, rather than making a call on the cell phone because it was so expensive. It wasn't until 2003 when cell phone became widely popular in Taiwan and China that almost everybody could have a cell phone of their own, and that was mostly due to the invention of text message. Now they no longer have to worry about how much they talk on the phone. Now, if you pay $200 Chinese a month, which would equivalent to $50 US a month, then you can send hundreds and hundreds of text messages without having to worry about the overage fee and stuff like that. And then in 2013, finally, iPhone became popular in China and Taiwan. Speaking of which, this is something that's really interesting. When I went back to Taiwan, so many people, when they saw my old secondhand iPhone 5, they were like, whoa, whoa, dude, you got an iPhone. And I mean, these were people that were walking around with brand new, up to date Samsung Galaxy and Android phone. But when they saw my old iPhone 5, whoa, dude, whoa, whoa, wow, you must be rich. You must be really rich. You have an iPhone. And I couldn't understand that. I was like, what's the big deal? It's an old iPhone. Your phone is way newer than mine. And then they told me because iPhone is very limited. They would only import so many iPhone a year, every year. Like let's say every year there would be only a hundred iPhone in Taiwan. Every year there would only be 100 iPhone in China. So it doesn't matter if you have the money or not. If you don't get there in time, you don't get an iPhone. So only people with really high influence, really high ranking, a lot of status can get an iPhone in China and Taiwan. So that's why my old iPhone was seen as something of a status symbol of my status. Everyone thought I was some big shot in Canada or something like that. Um, Before I go, I want to talk about two things that I have experienced that is kind of interesting going on with Taiwan and Chinese cell phone that I have not seen here. One, we all know that you can set your ringtone on your phone to whatever you like, right? But how often do you call someone and you hear the when it's ring when the phone is ringing in your ear? How often can you hear different songs? Almost never. And most of the time when you call someone on the phone, you hear that in your ear. Or you hear something go boo, boo, boo in your ear. Right? That's pretty much all you get. In Taiwan and China, the first time this happened to me, it really threw me off. When I called someone, suddenly some popular music like Lady Gaga started playing in my ear. I was like, what the heck? And then next time I call the same person, it's a different song. It's a different song. And apparently in China and Taiwan, depending on your provider, you can have the option to change whatever music you want people to hear when they call your phone. Now, how cool is that? That's like super neat. Uh, that is one thing that I noticed that's really interesting with a uh, cell phone over there. And another thing is uh, text message services. Now, Chinese people, it's really big on uh, wishing people Happy New Year's and writing up very uh, uh, well thought out phrases and messages. But not everyone is creative. So especially if you have 20 family members you want to text to a Happy New Year, it's really hard to come up with things. So in Taiwan and China, there's actually a service called uh, Message Creation Aid, and you pay them a couple of cents, maybe 20 cents, and then you can browse their archive of their custom-made text messages, and you can buy one and you can send that to your friend. And these are really, really well written ones. It's almost like they hire super highly educated people to write these things. I remember one that I saw a few years ago that was immensely popular. Apparently, it made millions of dollars. People were buying it everywhere to send around Chinese New Year. Let me translate it for you guys. This text message roughly says, the longer you have a glass of wine, the better it tastes. The longer you let the water run, the more clear it gets. The longer you let your sorrow linger, the less sad you will be. And you and I, our friendship will get better and better as time goes by. So it is for that I wish you happy holiday and happy new year. I mean, that is just nice. Like, so it's not like people are just buying boring, generic messages from these customizers. They actually do put a lot of thought into making beautiful, well thought out messages, and people don't mind buying them at all. So these are just a couple of little apps and services and interesting things you can get which related to your cell phone in Taiwan and China. I don't know if we have them here, if we ever see those things here. Maybe after you watch today's video, you can go and start it. And if you become a millionaire, you can please remember you heard this on the Johnny Tiger daily video first. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. I'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。